I've transmigrated into a ridiculously melodramatic romance novel, and I've become a member of the wealthy Wang family. Although this family lives a happy and harmonious life, they're soon destined to become stepping stones on the road to success for the male and female leads. The good news is, I came here with all my memories intact, so I know exactly how to prevent the tragedy that's about to unfold. The bad news, I'm only a 1-month-old baby who can't even talk yet. Tiny as I am, how on earth am I supposed to change the entire fate of this story? Main text. The Wang household in the capital. Mrs. Wang had just been resting after childbirth, leisurely sipping a nourishing soup. The little one in the bed had spent almost the whole confinement period sleeping, such an easy baby to take care of. Mrs. Wang looked at the child and her heart nearly melted. I gave a big lazy stretch, blinked my big eyes open, and met Mrs. Wang's gaze. After a month, I had already accepted the fact that I'd been transmigrated into a book, and had accepted my role as a baby. Ah, my pretty mom is really beautiful. Mrs. Wang froze. What was going on? Had she misheard? I should look a few more times. Pretty mom won't live long. Mrs. Wang's hand trembled. What? Not live long? On the very day, the day after my full month, that handsome dad's female secretary drugs him. Right now the car's heading to a hotel. She'll get pregnant and force him into marriage. After pretty mom flies into a rage and drives off. That rotten secretary tampers with your car. You'll die in a horrible crash. So tragic, such a pretty face left only half of it. Mrs. Wang shuddered all over. Her head buzzed. She finally realized she'd heard my thoughts. No matter how the little one knew, this matter had to be guarded against. Mrs. Wang stood up, handed me to the nanny, and walked out. Why is pretty mom leaving? She's in such a hurry. Mama, my dear mama, so sleepy, so sleepy. No, I'm going to sleep first. When I woke again, pretty mom and handsome dad were both in the room. Both their faces were flushed. Pretty mom had that faint hint of bashfulness, and handsome dad looked all clingy-eyed. What's going on? Normally at this hour handsome dad would be off having an affair with his secretary. Right, why is he home? Handsome dad Pablo coughed in surprise. What was that cute baby voice? Could it be? His gaze fell on my tiny face. Mrs. Wang gave him a barely noticeable look and said, the baby's awake. Time for milk. I glubbed and bubbled. A little milk baby really can't resist the temptation of feeding. Pablo sneakily tugged Mrs. Wang's hand and said, wife, honestly, I'm so glad you arrived in time today. Otherwise I'd have been compromised. Mrs. Wang gave him a light pat. I eavesdropped a little and thought, pretty mom saved handsome dad in time. Divine reversal. Awesome. What a beautiful day. Early the next morning I was still sleeping soundly when a sharp voice cried out from downstairs. Mrs. Wang. It's a misunderstanding. I really didn't drug Mr. Wang. I perked up my ears to listen to the drama. Secretary Laura, if I hadn't gone yesterday, would you still be talking to me like this? Pretty mom's voice sounded. You would have strutted around, taunting me, even provoking me into doing something rash, then causing my death, seizing the chance to rise, and abusing my child. Laura froze for a moment. I waved my tiny hands, wanting to clap. Go, pretty mom. Slap her. Pull her hair. Mrs. Wang's mouth twitched. She wasn't normally a shrew, but, if she hadn't heard her son's thoughts, wouldn't the outcome have been disastrous? So, what's wrong with teaching a bitch a lesson? Mrs. Wang took 2 steps forward. In Laura's stunned eyes, she slapped her twice. Smack smack. Laura cried in grievance. Handsome dad had wanted to come check on me, but he saw how excited I was. Hurry, hurry, take me to see the spectacle. Pablo had accepted yesterday that he could hear my thoughts. He figured I was his own flesh and blood, so that explained the telepathic connection. Come on, pretty mom's hitting someone. I want to watch. I want to watch. Pablo hurriedly picked me up and went downstairs in big strides. At that moment, Mrs. Wang was furiously beating Laura, who fled in utter panic, stumbling and disheveled. I looked at my pretty mom with joy. Just then, a young and handsome man walked in through the door. As he entered, he turned his head slightly and asked, Mom, that woman who just ran out crying, wasn't she Dad's scheming secretary? The young man was my eldest brother, Luis. Well, isn't that my handsome big brother? Our family's genes are truly superior. My brother is so good looking. Luis paused for a moment, then stepped forward. Dad, let me hold the baby. He reached out and took me into his arms. I leaned against his firm chest and tapped him twice lightly with my tiny hand. Poor big brother, I thought. You're still a complete man now, but once the female lead uses you to steal our family's business secrets, you'll be sent to a mental hospital, electroshocked, drugged, locked up with real lunatics, your limbs broken, dying miserably. Luis's hands loosened from shock, and I nearly fell to the floor. I burst out crying. Wah. Pretty mom quickly stepped forward, caught me, and said anxiously, be careful. Of course, my pretty mom and handsome dad had both heard my inner thoughts just now. Their faces didn't look good. Since my baby talk wasn't very clear, they didn't yet know exactly who the female lead was, only that she was someone around my brother. Handsome Dad and Pretty Mom exchanged a worried glance. They hurried to comfort me, hoping I'd keep talking, but I got tired from crying. After drinking some milk, I closed my eyes and fell asleep. Luis looked down at me, fast asleep in the swaddle, and for a moment wondered if he was hallucinating from exhaustion. How could a baby say such terrifying things? He patted his own head and said, "Dad, Mom, I'm going back to my room." Pretty Mom turned to Handsome Dad and said, "You heard what our son just said, right?" Handsome Dad nodded. "I did. No matter who this female lead, in the baby's words, is, we have to stay vigilant. From now on, keep our company's secrets safe. Don't let anyone know them, including Luis." Handsome Dad replied, "Understood. I'll take care of it immediately." He quickly made detailed backups of all his files. The ones left on his computer were fake documents, specially prepared to mislead anyone who tried to steal them. After finishing all their precautions, the couple still felt uneasy. They decided to stay together by my bedside and wait. I slept for another 2 hours, and when I woke up again, it was already noon, time to eat. Pretty Mom carried me downstairs. It was a day off. My big brother was home, and my big sister had gone out to meet friends. I still couldn't sit up by myself, so I leaned comfortably in Pretty Mom's arms, babbling. I was quite the chatterbox. I kept talking about how delicious this and that food in the house looked, but of course, I couldn't eat any of it. I just deliberately avoided bringing up the topic from that morning. Pretty Mom was getting anxious. She glanced at Handsome Dad. Handsome Dad thought for a moment, then said to my eldest brother, "How's the company going? You're the one managing our family's latest project now. You have to be careful." My brother paused, remembering something from this morning. He turned to look at me in silence. That reminded me too, what I had said this morning. Oh my God, how far has the female lead gone with my brother now? Have they gotten to the bed scene yet? Luis's face flushed red. What on earth was going on inside that little head of mine? Just then, my brother's phone rang. He answered. A soft female voice came from the other end. "Luis, don't forget we're watching a movie tonight." A faint blush spread across his cheeks instantly, and the corners of his lips curved into a sweet smile. I stared at him and slapped my little thigh with my tiny hand in frustration. "Brother, you may look happy now, but you'll suffer later. That woman, she's the female lead, but you're not the male lead. Being with her won't end well." The 3 adults of the Wang family froze. It turned out that the female lead I was talking about was Luis's girlfriend, Maria. Maria came from an ordinary family. Her parents were farmers, but through her own hard work, she got into Capital University, where she met Luis. Naturally, the two of them got together. Later, she even joined the Wang family's company, putting her in a position to access its core secrets. A chill ran down Luis's spine. Beauty was important, and love was too. But if the price of love was ending up in a mental hospital, losing limbs, and being electroshocked, then such love wasn't worth it at all. Pretty Mom and Handsome Dad exchanged a glance. Both of them understood without words. They said nothing more and quietly finished their lunch. That afternoon, the 3 adults went back to their own work. As for me, a newborn baby, I could only lie in bed, nap when I felt sleepy, and occasionally chew on my toes. My days were leisurely and peaceful, blissfully carefree. A few days later, my imaginative big sister, Alicia, came home. She was a painter, an incredibly talented one. By the time she was 15, her work had already been sold overseas, and one of her paintings had even been collected by the National Art Museum. The moment she stepped into the house, she rushed straight to my room. Seeing me playing, her eyes curved into a warm smile. Sister looked just like Pretty Mom, so beautiful. I looked at her, and a wave of sadness washed over me again. My poor sister, I thought. In just a few days you're going on a blind date, and the guy you'll meet is the male lead. You'll have a flash marriage with him, but you're not the female lead. Being with the male lead never ends well. He'll deceive your body, your heart, and even your kidney. Once you get the marriage certificate, he'll turn you into a mobile blood bank for the female lead. In the end, everything that can be taken from you will be taken. It's so tragic. My brilliant, talented sister, oh God. I was crying inside, but my tiny mouth only opened and closed uselessly. No sound came out. How can I warn my sister to be careful? I thought anxiously. It'd be best if she didn't go to that blind date at all. Even the friend who's taking her there isn't a good person. She's someone the male lead arranged in advance just to set my sister up. Alicia stared at me, her big, clear eyes wide with confusion. For a long while, she couldn't say a single word. Inside, I thought again, what's wrong? My dear sister, why are you looking at me like that? Do you think I'm smart, cute, and adorable? My poor sister. Anyway, none of us in this family has a good ending. We all die in the end. I won't even live past 3 years old. Not long from now, the new nanny will secretly sell me to some remote mountain village. After that, I'll never have enough to eat or warm clothes to wear. I'll die at 3. Oh God. I'm really pitiful too, and they'll call me a vicious male supporting role, just because I made the female lead feel guilty. Ugh. There's no justice in this world. My little thoughts drifted and tangled inside my mind like a messy ball of yarn. Pretty Mom's arms tightened slightly around me. She gently patted my back, and for some reason, I felt safe. I nuzzled into her embrace. Sure enough, moms are the best. I'll enjoy her hugs for as long as I can. Alicia's mouth opened and closed for a while before she finally found her voice again. Mom, my little brother. He's kind of special. I blinked and thought. My sister's compliments are special too. Pretty Mom looked at her eldest daughter, thinking of how miserable her future would be, deceived and doomed to die so tragically. Her eyes reddened. She forced a gentle smile and said, yes, ever since your brother was born, our family's luck has been turning around. He's our little lucky star. As Pretty Mom and Alicia were talking, Alicia's phone suddenly chimed with a message notification. She glanced at the screen and froze. What's wrong? Who sent you that message? Pretty Mom asked. Why do you look so pale? Alicia's grip on her phone tightened. It's from my friend. Your friend? What friend? What does she want? Pretty Mom pressed immediately. Our family was always open-minded. Pretty Mom never interfered in my brother's or sister's social lives, but this time, she insisted on knowing. Alicia felt confused. Could it be that Mom also heard what her baby brother had been thinking? She hesitated, but eventually handed the phone over. Pretty Mom looked at the message on the screen, and her expression instantly changed. The message was from Alicia's roommate, Sophia. Sophia's message said that her neighbor's older brother was being forced by his mother into a blind date, so she wanted my sister to help by just going along with it. Pretty Mom felt a chill run down her spine. She murmured, so Sophia actually wants you to go pretend to be on a date with her neighbor's brother? My alarm bells were ringing. Yes, it's Sophia. She's actually the male lead's real younger sister. It's all arranged. The male lead is handsome. They want my sister to fall for him at first sight. Once they marry, he'll be her husband and can sign the donation consent forms for her. Pretty Mom's face flushed with anger. She looked like she wanted to strangle Sophia and the male lead right then and there. In my head I was pounding out the facts. The female lead is getting close to my brother to swindle our family's money and help the male lead make a comeback. The male lead is getting close to my sister for her blood and her kidneys. Oh my God, what kind of writer comes up with such a plot? So trashy and melodramatic. I cursed inside. Pretty Mom took 2 deep breaths to steady herself, then said to Alicia, don't go. Alicia looked at Mom, her gaze lifting slightly. She had to be sure Mom could also hear our little brother's thoughts, but they didn't want him to know. If he found out, he'd feel uncomfortable living here. Alicia paused, then nodded. I understand, Mom. Don't worry, I know what to do. I wanted to shout inside. Sister, don't meet the male lead. You'll fall in love with him. It'll be a disaster. Alicia gently pressed her face against mine and said, our little brother really is the Wang family's lucky star. I didn't know why they said that, but I accepted the praise. I'm a kid, after all. I got sleepy again and fell asleep not long after I ate. Pretty Mom called handsome Dad, Alicia, and Luis into the study for our family's first very formal meeting. They already understood the fate of the cannon fodder characters and decided they would protect every family member. And they would strike back at the male and female leads. Handsome Dad spoke solemnly. You can all hear our little brother's thoughts, right? Pretty Mom, Luis, and Alicia all nodded. Our little brother is different from what he's been thinking. It seems none of our family has a good ending. Luis shrugged and leaned back, looking completely defeated. Alicia gave Luis a little kick with her foot. It used to be like that, but with the information our little brother gives us, I think we can still turn danger into safety, right? Handsome Dad and Pretty Mom nodded at once. With our little brother, we can definitely change our fate. The 4 of them calmed down a little before Handsome Dad opened a PowerPoint presentation. As a dominant CEO type, he preferred to speak with charts and visuals. First, he began. We can now confirm that the female lead our son mentioned is Maria, and the male lead is Sophia's older brother. They plan to infiltrate our family through the 2 of you. One will steal our company's secrets, and the other will destroy our eldest daughter. Therefore, we must investigate both of them thoroughly. Agreed. Luis raised his hand. Even so, his heart ached. After all, he had loved Maria for years. The woman he had been ready to marry, the one he thought would be his lifelong partner, turned out to be the executioner who would doom his entire family. I've already sent people to investigate Maria. Handsome Dad continued. Alicia lifted her gaze. As for me, she said in a serious tone, I've decided to go on the blind date. Handsome Dad and Pretty Mom both froze, their expressions darkening. Our son already said that man is no good. Pretty Mom tried to dissuade her. I know he's bad. I know he's working with Maria. That's exactly why I have to go. If I meet him in person, we can identify who the male lead really is. Only then can we make our move. Can't we just investigate Sophia first? and then trace it back to her brother? Luis asked. I don't think that's possible, Alicia said, shaking her head. Sophia only has her mother at home. If little brother hadn't mentioned it, I'd never have known she even had a brother. What if we target the wrong person? It's better if I meet him directly. And besides, I already know he'll try to harvest my kidneys and treat me like a mobile blood bank. I'm not sick. How could I possibly fall for someone like that? No matter how handsome he is, he can't be more attractive than Takashi Kaneshiro. Alicia's tone was firm, her decision made. Handsome dad and pretty mom exchanged a long look. If Alicia could truly guarantee she wouldn't fall for that scumbag, then going on the blind date was indeed the most direct and accurate way. Handsome dad gave her several repeated warnings. When Alicia answered each one with steady resolve, he finally nodded. All right, you can go. Then, suddenly, handsome dad added, take your little brother with you to the blind date. Pretty mom blinked, but he's still so young. Alicia's eyes lit up. If his health allows it, I'd actually like to bring him along. Little brother always reveals things unintentionally. We could learn more through him, Luis said in agreement. Yes. Handsome dad nodded gravely. Our little one has some kind of extraordinary ability. Right. Pretty mom murmured softly, looking at the sleeping baby in her arms. He's not an ordinary child, so it should be fine. Handsome dad glanced at pretty mom, who still looked uneasy. If it really doesn't work out, I'll go too, she said. I'll wait for you in the car outside. If anything happens, I can handle it right away. Good. Then that's settled. Everyone agreed on the plan. Alicia suddenly spoke up, her tone serious. Little brother said the nanny we're about to hire will sell him to the mountains, that he won't have enough to eat or wear, and that he'll die at 3 years old. When I'd thought that earlier, only pretty mom and Alicia had been in the room, the others hadn't heard it. Now, handsome dad and Luis both froze, their faces instantly paling. Pretty mom's eyes reddened. Thinking of her tiny baby being abused and suffering at such a young age, she could barely control her emotions. Handsome dad reached out and pulled her into his arms. Don't worry, he said firmly. We won't be hiring any nanny. We'll kill this danger before it even starts. Luis suddenly frowned. Do you think the nanny who was supposed to sell our little brother might also be connected to Maria and that male lead? Everyone's eyes shot up at once, a fierce hatred flashing in their gaze. That damned pair, handsome dad said coldly. If they really had something to do with this, then we're already at a point of no return. It's them or us. None of this makes sense, pretty mom said, bewildered. We're not saints, but we've never done anything evil. Why would anyone target our family like this? I've heard little brother mention the male lead, female lead, and the author. Alicia said slowly. Could it be that we're living inside a book? The room fell silent. After a long pause, handsome dad finally spoke. It's possible. You two like reading those bizarre web novels, right? Maybe we really are characters inside one of them. Alicia gave him a look of pure disdain. Dad, you're the only one in the family who reads that stuff. Luis immediately nodded in agreement. Pretty mom nodded too. Handsome dad cleared his throat twice, looking embarrassed. Who would have thought that a powerful CEO would secretly enjoy reading online novels? Anyway, let's not dwell on these minor details, handsome dad said, regaining his composure. I've read a lot of those stories. Usually, the main character travels into a book, gets close to the people destined to die, and ends up saving them. Maybe that's exactly what's happening with our little brother. No matter why it happened, pretty mom said resolutely, he's my son, and I'll protect him. Handsome dad nodded. From this moment on, we protect each other, always. Luis and Alicia both echoed together. Agreed. When I woke up, pretty mom was sitting beside me again. I loved snuggling in her arms more than anything. In my previous life, I was an orphan. I'd never even known what a mother's embrace felt like. I didn't even know who my mother was. To have somehow ended up in this world, inside this book, and become her child, maybe it was fate. And honestly, it felt kind of wonderful. Dad loves mom. My brother and sister get along well, and everyone spoils me so much. It's just a pity that none of them live long. How can I learn to talk sooner? I fretted silently to myself, my baby mind running in circles. Pretty mom gently patted my tiny bottom and said softly, my sweet little baby, it's such a blessing to have you. Maybe it was just my imagination, but I thought she sounded like she was about to cry. She held me close, and though I couldn't see her expression, the steady rhythm of her heartbeat made me feel safe. At dinner, pretty mom kept me in her arms while she ate. Then Alicia's phone rang. It's Sophia, Alicia told everyone. The room instantly went quiet. Alicia turned on the speaker. Ali, why didn't you reply to my message? Came a sugary, playful voice from the other end. I didn't see it. My phone died, and I left it charging in the room. What's up? Alicia asked calmly. I was just saying, my neighbor's older brother is being forced by his mom to go on a blind date. I wanted to ask you to help me out. Just pretend to be his date for a bit. Sophia's voice dripped with sweetness, the kind of tone that made her sound like an innocent, charming friend. Why don't you go yourself? Alicia asked back, her voice cool. Well, I already know their family really well. His mom knows me, so if she sees me there, it'll be super awkward. You just have to show up and play along for a while. I'll stay far away and snap a picture to keep up appearances. Please, Ollie. Sophia coaxed, her voice honeyed. You're so kind and beautiful, I knew you'd say yes. And my neighbor's brother is really handsome. Who knows, maybe you'll like him. Wouldn't that be the perfect happy ending? Since starting college, Alicia had gotten along pretty well with her roommate. Alicia was generous and easy to get along with. She shared her things freely and never made a fuss. Her roommate was pretty and sweet-tongued, and Alicia had always thought herself lucky to have such a friendly companion. But inside, I wanted to scream, my poor sister. Sophia isn't being nice, she's just using you. She knows you're rich, and behind your back, she calls you the gullible one. Maybe it was my imagination again, but I could have sworn Alicia's lips twitched. Sophia, got it, Alicia said smoothly. When and where? Her voice wasn't as gentle as before, there was a hint of frost to it now. Excited by the quick agreement, Sophia didn't notice. Tomorrow morning. It's our day off anyway. Let's meet at 9. I'll send you the address on WeChat later. Okay then, we'll talk tomorrow. I've got things to do. Alicia hung up immediately after. The call ended, and a heavy silence filled the room once more. In the past, Alicia had always waited for the other person to hang up first. She thought that was the polite thing to do. Sophia, holding her phone, jumped with joy after the call ended, completely oblivious that this time it had been Alicia who hung up first. The next morning, Alicia came into my room just as Pretty Mom finished changing my diaper. I stared up at her anxiously, eyes wide and filled with worry. Sis, my dearest sister, you're really going to that blind date. What should I do? If you go, you'll definitely fall for that scumbag, and then your whole fate will be in his hands. How can I warn you? I'm so worried. Alicia's gaze softened as she looked at me. Suddenly, she said, Mom, I want to take little brother with me today. Pretty Mom immediately nodded. That's a good idea. If you take him along, it won't be awkward if you don't like the guy. Yes, exactly. I screamed internally. Please don't like him, Alicia. For heaven's sake, may the Lord cure your love brain before you walk out that door. Alicia coughed lightly, trying not to smile. Pretty Mom said carefully, I'll be waiting nearby. I'll have the driver park the RV close to the cafe. You and your brother go in, and after you meet the guy, come straight back to the RV. Alicia agreed, then picked me up and headed out the door. The driver took us to a cafe. Before we even entered, my internal monologue was running wild. He's a scumbag. Alicia, a total scumbag. He's broke, from a poor family, and he's even an illegitimate child. He's only trying to crawl back into his father's family to fight for inheritance with his dad's legitimate kids, and he plans to use you to do it. My poor sister, what a horrible waste. I kept muttering to myself in my head as Alicia gently patted me, like she was soothing me, and oddly enough, it actually helped a little. We walked inside. A young man noticed Alicia right away, stood up, and waved at us. Following Alicia's gaze, I looked at him. He was wearing a light gray suit, formal but not too stiff. He hadn't worn a tie, and the top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone, showing a glimpse of his defined collarbones. His face was delicate, his features refined, the perfect image of a refined scoundrel. I grumbled internally. He doesn't just look like a scoundrel, he really is one. And those open buttons, not sexy, just greasy. Total sleazeball. Alicia let out a small laugh, holding me as she walked toward him. Panic surged through my mind. Oh no, she's smiling. She's smiling. Does that mean she likes him already? Please. No, Alicia, don't you dare. Sitting across from the man, Alicia spoke first. Hello, I'm Alicia. I'm Sophia's roommate. She asked me to come help you pretend. The man smiled politely. Nice to meet you. I'm Makoto Ito. I kept complaining in my head. Makoto Ito. That name already sounds like trouble. Authors these days really lack imagination. They just can't get past the same few names. Alicia could barely hide the faint smile tugging at her lips. Is Sophia around? Didn't she say she'd help take a picture? My little brother's still young. We'll have to leave soon. Makoto clearly hadn't expected Alicia to seem so utterly indifferent to him. He dressed up exactly according to her supposed preferences. Could the information he got have been wrong? Makoto smiled politely. Sophia probably hasn't arrived yet. How about we chat for a while? What would you like to drink? He chivalrously handed her the ordering page on his phone. Without even glancing at it, Alicia replied, just plain water. Thank you. Makoto immediately signaled the waiter to pour her a glass of warm water. He then ordered an orange juice and a coffee for himself, placing the orange juice gently in front of Alicia. You should try their orange juice, it's freshly squeezed. Really good. Alicia thanked him, lowered her head, and sipped her water, her entire posture radiating a quiet please don't talk to me energy. Inside, I was cheering wildly. Amazing. Alicia, you're not falling for this jerk. You've leveled up. You're incredible. Makoto tried several times to start a conversation, but Alicia didn't take the bait. They sat in silence for more than 10 minutes. Finally, Sophia arrived. Seeing the two of them sitting together, her face instantly lit up with a bright smile. "Ollie, how's my neighbor doing?" she teased. Alicia gave her a cool look and smiled faintly, just nodding. That's when Sophia spotted me. She froze. "Ollie, why are you holding a kid during your blind date? Don't tell me she's..." Sophia gasped dramatically, covering her mouth like she'd uncovered a juicy secret. Alicia shot her a sharp glare. "Don't talk nonsense. This is my brother. I just thought it'd be awkward for two strangers to sit together, so I brought him along. So young and already out with you. He's adorable. He really looks like you." Sophia quickly tried to smooth things over, still laughing, and then plopped down beside Makoto. "Let me take a few pictures of you too," she said. "Makoto, sit next to Ollie." My sister immediately stopped her. "That's not necessary. Just take one from a distance. With us sitting opposite each other drinking coffee, that'll be enough proof your friend actually went on the date." Sophia blinked, surprised that Alicia had refused so directly, without even caring if Makoto felt awkward. Something about Alicia seemed different today. After a short hesitation, Sophia did as she was told. Once she finished taking the photo, she cheerfully suggested, "Why don't we all grab lunch together?" At that, I let out a loud wah, and started crying. No way. Alicia can't keep hanging around this jerk. She's managed not to be fooled so far. But what if he acts all gentlemanly over lunch and she actually falls for him? I have to stop this. The more I thought about it, the louder I cried, drawing the attention of everyone in the cafe. Alicia hurried to comfort me, gently patting my back before standing up with me in her arms. "I'm so sorry, Sophia. My little brother seems upset. I need to take him to find my mom. He's probably hungry." After saying that, Alicia turned around with me in her arms and left, leaving Sophia and Makoto staring at each other in confusion. "What's going on? Didn't you say she likes my type of guy?" Makoto frowned. Sophia muttered unhappily, "I don't know. It's like she suddenly switched personalities or something." After thinking for a moment, Sophia continued, "It's fine. Once she's back at the dorm, I'll talk her into it. Tell her more good things about you. Then you can come to the campus, and I'll drag her along for lunch. There'll be plenty of chances for you two to meet." Makoto sighed. "We'd better think of some other ways too." Meanwhile, Pretty Mom was listening to their entire conversation through the earphones. Alicia had deliberately left her phone on the table when she walked away. After returning, Alicia handed me back into Pretty Mom's arms. I was still sniffling, hiccuping between breaths. Alicia pretended to say casually, "I forgot my phone there. I'll go get it now." Inside, I was screaming, "No, don't go back. Stay away from that jerk. Stay away from him." Pretty Mom gently patted my back to soothe me. "Let the driver fetch it instead." Before long, the driver returned with Alicia's phone. Alicia took it and looked at me with a reassuring smile. I finally let out a small sigh of relief. Crisis averted. Honestly, these adults can't manage without me. Without me, this family would fall apart. Pretty Mom and Alicia exchanged a knowing smile. After that blind date with Makoto, Alicia decided to take a short leave and stay home for a while. Handsome Dad had bought her an apartment near the university, currently being renovated. Once everything was set, Alicia would move out of the dorm for good. A week passed in the blink of an eye. Pretty Mom was sitting in the yard, basking in the sunlight with me in her arms, while Alicia kept her company. Then Handsome Dad came in, his expression unusually serious. Pretty Mom immediately asked, "What's wrong? Did something happen at the company?" I perked up right away, my big black eyes fixed on him. Handsome Dad didn't try to hide anything. He sat down across from us and said quietly, "Our housemaid was in a car accident." Pretty Mom nearly jumped up from her chair. "What happened?" "She went out to buy groceries today and got hit by a car while crossing the street." "How is she?" Pretty Mom asked anxiously. "She's not in any life-threatening danger," Handsome Dad replied in a low voice, "but she won't be able to work for a while. I've already arranged for her to be hospitalized." The driver's been caught. It was a new driver who just got his license and panicked, mistook the gas pedal for the brake. He's been very cooperative and apologetic. Pretty Mom and Alicia exchanged a glance. They both knew this was the result of the plot moving forward. Our housemaid's accident wasn't just bad luck. It was practically scripted. Just then, Luis and Maria arrived at our house. Lately, Luis had been growing noticeably distant from Maria. In order to keep him from slipping away, Maria had been working harder at her job and showering Luis with even more care and attention in their daily life. When Luis came home today, she'd followed him, saying she wanted to come see me. "Good afternoon, Uncle, Auntie, Ollie," Maria greeted softly, her tone warm and polite. She even waved at me, showing a friendly smile. But I knew better. She didn't have good intentions toward our family. Tilting my head, I immediately buried myself deeper into Pretty Mom's arms. What were you talking about? Maria asked with concern. Luis also turned his eyes to my parents. Handsome Dad's gaze darkened for a moment before he lifted his eyes and said, "Our housemaid had an accident. I just got back from the hospital." "What happened to her?" Luis's surprise seemed genuine. Handsome Dad briefly explained the situation. "As long as she's okay, but without a housemaid now. Who's going to help Auntie with daily care?" Maria asked. Handsome Dad, Pretty Mom, Alicia, and Luis all exchanged a quick, subtle look. Pretty Mom nodded slightly. "That's right. I happen to know a friend who runs a domestic service company," Maria offered. "I could ask them to send someone over as a replacement." Luis immediately rejected her. "No need. We already have someone suitable." Maria clearly didn't understand. How could Luis already have a replacement lined up when the accident had just happened? Handsome Dad quickly stepped in to smooth things over. "We have a relative from our hometown who's been wanting to come work for us. Back then we already had a housemaid, so we didn't take her. Now that this happened, it's the perfect time to let her fill in." Handsome Dad helped Luis cover his tracks. Luis quickly nodded. "Yes, she's family, so we know her background. We'll be more at ease with her taking care of the little one." Maria smiled. "All right then, as long as there's someone to help, that's good." I had to admit, the heroine was still the heroine. Her mental composure stayed intact the entire time. Even when she didn't get what she wanted, no one could tell anything was off about her. Inside, I muttered to myself, when will we be rid of the male lead and the heroine? If we don't defeat them, they'll destroy us sooner or later. I let out a little sigh, and Pretty Mom gently patted my back. Luis stood up and said, "I'll head back to my room first. Maria, come with me." Maria nodded, smiled politely at us, and followed Luis upstairs. Handsome Dad spoke up, his tone calm but edged with suspicion. "I can't shake the feeling that she doesn't have good intentions." Pretty Mom nodded in agreement, and my heart instantly leapt with excitement. Oh my God, Handsome Dad is amazing. He actually noticed the heroine's ill intent. Does that mean he's already preparing countermeasures? Handsome Dad, you're brilliant. Apparently, he could sense the praise in the air, his mood visibly lifted. Alicia asked curiously, "So, since we're not taking the maid Maria recommended, do we actually have anyone to help out?" Handsome Dad shook his head. "No, not really. When Maria mentioned it, I just felt her people weren't trustworthy, so I made something up to cover for your brother. Otherwise, that idiot would have given everything away." He said it with such disdain that I almost laughed out loud. Pretty Mom nodded. "Our Luis has always been too honest for his own good. If it weren't for the fact that we're still trying to figure out why they're targeting our family, I think he would have broken up with her long ago." Alicia frowned slightly. "That's true, but now that the maid's gone, what will we do in the meantime?" Handsome Dad thought for a moment and said, "It's fine. I'll just ask someone back home to recommend a reliable person to come help us out." Pretty Mom interrupted with a smile. "Why bother asking anyone else? I can just call one of my girlfriends to come over. I have a close friend named Jenny. She's beautiful, gentle, and an amazing cook. She's just had a rough life. When she was young, she married a rich man, but not long after the wedding, her husband died. Her in-laws kicked her out with nothing. Then she remarried, but that man turned out to be a gambler. Within a few years, he'd lost everything and nearly sold her off. If I hadn't stepped in, she would have been completely ruined. After that, Jenny gave up on men entirely. She's been single ever since." Smart woman, I thought. Staying single really is the safest option. "All right then." Handsome Dad agreed easily. "Invite her over to help out for a while." "Perfect. I'll give her a call and ask her to come. It'll be nice to catch up too." Pretty Mom looked pleased as she spoke. Meanwhile, I was deep in thought. Jenny. Why does that name sound familiar? No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't recall where I'd heard it before. She's probably just a minor side character, I mumbled inwardly. If she were important, I'd definitely remember her. I was still muttering to myself when my stomach growled loudly, twice. Pretty Mom laughed, scooping me up. "Looks like it's time for lunch again. Our little guy eats well and sleeps well, such a healthy baby." As she carried me back toward our room, we passed by Luis's door, just in time to see Maria practically draped all over him. Pretty Mom cleared her throat pointedly. "Twice." Maria straightened up immediately, her face flushing crimson. Luis's face flushed bright red. "Oh no. Is Maria trying to seduce my brother?" I screamed inwardly. "Does she want to trap him in her beauty so he'll never escape?" Luis quickly stammered. "Mom, it's not what it looks like. Maria just lost her balance. I was helping her. That's all." Maria, cheeks crimson, said hastily, "I have something to do. I'll head out first." She turned and hurried downstairs, heels clicking, then went straight out the door and into her car. Pretty Mom's voice was calm but sharp. "Luis, you need to know your limits." Luis immediately tried to defend himself. "Mom, it's really not what you think. There's nothing going on between us. Don't you believe me?" I sighed heavily in my heart. Since ancient times, even the wisest heroes have fallen for beauty's traps. The heroine can charm every man alive. It's not surprising my brother's struggling. I just hope he gets through this safely. Maybe we should take him to a psychiatric hospital. Once he sees how bad obsession can get, maybe he'll stop being such a lovesick fool. Pretty mom carried me back to the bedroom. After finishing my milk, I drifted off to sleep. I was still just a baby after all, and there were too many adult problems I couldn't fix. When I woke up again around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, Pretty mom carried me downstairs. With no housemaid around anymore, the house was noticeably quieter. Alicia was in the kitchen trying to make dinner, though cooking clearly wasn't her strength. Handsome dad was beside her, helping out. Luis came downstairs just then, still looking gloomy after Maria's earlier stunt. "Ali, come hold your brother for a bit. I'll go help your dad," Pretty mom said. "Okay, mom," Alicia replied instantly. She put down what she was holding, washed her hands, and came over to take me. It was obvious she was much more comfortable caring for me than cooking. Luis sat down next to us, looking defeated. "I heard David and the others ask you out for dinner. You're not going?" Alicia asked. Luis shook his head. "I don't feel like it." "Oh, come on. It's not the end of the world. It's just Maria. You'll find someone better eventually. Right now, she's just a temporary inconvenience." Alicia's tone was comforting but practical. Luis sighed and muttered, "You know, I used to think everything about her was great, but lately, whenever I see her, all I can think about are unpleasant things. I don't even want to be near her anymore. She's been trying every possible way to fix things between us. It's driving me insane." "Don't push too hard," Alicia warned softly. "If you act too cold, she might realize we're onto her." Luis let out another deep sigh. I blinked my big round eyes. What's this? Are my brother and Maria drifting apart? Finally, my love-blind brother might actually be waking up. No. Correction, he might actually be growing a brain. Alicia couldn't help it. She burst out laughing. Luis ran a hand over his face, groaning inwardly. "Seriously, little brother, did you really have to roast me like that?" But he didn't dare say it out loud, just sat there in silence, stewing in his embarrassment. I couldn't hear Luis's thoughts at all, so I had no idea why he and Alicia were suddenly laughing. I kept mumbling to myself, "My brother's friends aren't all good people. It's a pity I'm not going with him. If I were there, I could at least help him tell who's genuine and who's fake. But what's the use? I know the plot, but I can't even talk. And even if I could talk, none of them would believe me. I'm just a baby. How could a 1-month-old possibly know so much?" I sighed again. The more I thought about it, the more I felt emo. Then out of nowhere, Luis said, "I'll bring the little guy with me to tonight's dinner party." I froze. "What? Take me to a drinking party? I'm barely over a month old. Brother, please, be a human being." Alicia coughed twice, trying to suppress her laughter. "Luis, are you sure that's a good idea? He's just a baby. Is it really appropriate to take him to a dinner party?" "What's inappropriate about it? My little brother looks good anywhere," Luis declared proudly. Before anyone could stop him, he scooped me up into his arms. "My dear baby brother," he said solemnly, "tonight you're coming with me. If you kick someone, I'll cut ties with them. If you pat someone, they'll be my new best friend. I'll trust your judgment completely." It's over. My brother's gone insane. The heroine must have broken his brain. My handsome, charming, once glorious brother, ruined, just ruined. I whimpered pitifully in my heart while Luis hugged me tighter, and Alicia was laughing so hard behind him she could barely stand. An hour later, despite all protests, I still ended up in Luis's car. At least he brought a driver this time. He couldn't exactly drive while holding me. A tiny milk bottle hung around my neck, and before leaving, Pretty mom had carefully changed my diaper. She was so anxious it was almost funny. She hadn't even been this worried when I went out with Alicia for her blind date. She wanted to come along, of course, but Luis refused flatly. He insisted he could take perfect care of me and told them not to worry or interfere. So in the end, it was just Luis, me, and the driver heading out together. The private room at the hotel. When Luis entered the private room holding me, every single person inside froze. "Luis, what the hell? You already have a secret baby," one of them blurted out in disbelief. "Shut up," Luis snapped. "This is my little brother." "Your brother? He's barely a month old." "Right. Why on earth did you bring him here?" "No one was home to look after him today, so I'm taking care of him," Luis replied smoothly. Inside, I rolled my eyes so hard they might have fallen out. "Liar. Mom, Dad, and sister are all at home. You're the one who insisted on dragging me here." To express my outrage, I kicked him right in the chest. Luis sighed silently, his expression crumbling. "My own little brother hates me. This hurts more than anything." "David, you're here too," Luis said, spotting one of the men nearby. "Didn't you say you couldn't make it tonight?" The man, tall, cheerful, and with a sharp grin, stood up and patted Luis's shoulder. "Yeah, I had a family dinner planned. but they canceled last minute, so I got free. Thought I'd drop by since I had nothing else to do. Luis nodded, his mood lifting slightly. The men chuckled again. Besides, how could I miss a chance to see you showing up with a baby in your arms? That's a once-in-a-lifetime moment. David. Suddenly, it clicked. My big eyes sparkled like stars. So that's who he is. David walked right up to me and reached out, clearly wanting to pinch my chubby little cheek. Before he could touch me, I grabbed his finger with my tiny hand and held it tightly. Oh my God, it's David. I screamed inwardly. He's the future billionaire. Luis's eyes stayed fixed on David, his expression skeptical. Future billionaire? Him? This goofy-looking guy? That makes no sense. I'm smarter. I'm better looking. How on earth does he end up richer than me? He grumbled silently. I continued. And David's actually a really good person. He's my brother's only true friend. When our family got destroyed later on, he was the only one who came after hearing the news. But by the time he arrived, it was already too late. A sigh slipped from my tiny body. Even though Luis had started guarding himself against the heroine, and Alicia hadn't met the male lead yet, I couldn't shake this sense of unease. My little face scrunched into a frown of worry. Luis immediately noticed and turned to David. David, can you hold my little brother for a bit? I'm going to the restroom. Don't hand him to anyone else, just you. David chuckled and nodded. No problem. I'm great with kids. I used to carry my nephew all the time. He carefully took me into his arms. His grip was steady and gentle. He actually did know how to hold a baby properly. 2 minutes later, Luis returned. Seeing that David was holding me comfortably, he poured himself a drink. You can hold him a little longer. Looks like my brother really likes you, he said casually. David laughed and nodded. He truly liked children. He kept making silly faces to amuse me and even helped me drink a bit of milk. It was hard not to like the guy. Then another man at the table stood up. Luis, come on, you brought your baby brother. Sure, but you can't just sit there dry all night. You gotta drink at least a little with your brothers. Luis smiled lightly. Eric, if it's just a little. Sure, I was afraid you couldn't handle it. But in truth, Luis had no intention of drinking at all. He was calling out their names one by one, just to see which ones would trigger my inner commentary. And sure enough, the moment I heard Eric, my mind exploded with alarm bells. Eric, he's Maria's half-brother. He's only hanging around my brother to win favor for his sister. Later, when she strikes against our family, he'll be the first to betray us. Luis's gaze turned cold, a sharp glint flickering in his eyes. Interesting, he thought. I really didn't expect that. Maria had already infiltrated nearly every corner of his circle. Luis kept calling out names, one after another, and I kept silently roasting them in my mind. One of them was Maria's loyal simp. Another was Makoto's close buddy. In short, except for David, none of them were good people. Later, when our family would collapse, they'd all have a hand in it and profit from our downfall. Then, like lightning, an idea struck me. Wait, David becomes a billionaire later, and he's kind, responsible, and handsome. Why can't he be my sister's future husband instead? Luis, hearing my thoughts, suddenly froze mid-sip. His gaze drifted back to David, studying him intently for a long moment. Then, slowly, a faint, satisfied smile appeared on his face. He silently agreed with me. Yeah, the kid's got a point. If David's that good, better keep him in the family. Why let some outsider benefit instead? Thinking of this, Luis's gaze toward David grew hotter and hotter, like a matchmaking elder who had already decided on his candidate. David, I've got something to do. Come with me first and help me take care of my brother, Luis said suddenly. David, who genuinely liked children, didn't hesitate. This was just another night out with the guys. He could go anytime, but if Luis needed help with his baby brother, that meant something urgent. He nodded immediately. Under the muttering and teasing of the rest of the table, David followed my brother out. David, go home, Luis said as soon as they got in the car, his voice full of excitement. Go home. Why are we going to your house? David asked, confused. To bring you over as a guest, Luis replied matter-of-factly. David blinked but let himself be kidnapped back to the house, still holding me carefully. As the two of them walked up to the door, Luis with me in his arms, David walking beside him, they were talking casually when Alicia happened to open the door to go out. She didn't see them and walked straight into David. By instinct, David reached out and caught her by the waist. The two of them froze, eyes locking, time pausing for a heartbeat. David really was handsome, graceful, upright, his presence fresh and scholarly rather than overbearing. He radiated a kind of quiet elegance that put people at ease. They stared at each other, momentarily forgetting the world around them. Inside my little baby head, pink bubbles exploded. Is this love at first sight? Did David and my sister just fall for each other at first glance? Hearing my thoughts, Alicia snapped back to reality, quickly stepping back, her cheeks bright red. Sorry, I didn't know anyone was at the door. Luis, inside, was grinning ear to ear. Oh yeah, this is promising. This is definitely promising, David stammered. It's fine. The two of them stood there, both a little flustered. It was so sweet it could give someone cavities. I was making little gurgling sounds of delight, still lost in my pink fantasy. David glanced down at me. Ah, your little brother is really cute. Alicia nodded. Yes, he's always been adorable. You were heading out, where to? Want me to give you a ride? David offered. I was going back to the dorm to grab a book, Alicia said softly, still blushing. I'll go with you. I'm free anyway, David said quickly. Luis tilted his head. Aren't you here as my guest? Who said you're free? But David had already forgotten why he was there, or that he hadn't even driven his own car. Alicia, equally distracted, walked out with him, completely ignored. Luis and I were left staring at each other, big eyes to small. Luis smirked. Kiddo, you're about to get a brother-in-law. I responded silently. Brother, you're about to get a brother-in-law too. We looked at each other and burst into laughter. Then Luis scooped me up and strode quickly after them. Brother, why are you carrying me? They're clearly going on a date, I protested in my heart. Luis's tone was serious. Ali said she's going back to the dorm to grab a book. Sophia's there. Who knows if she'll run into trouble? I'll bring you along, just in case we need to help out, he muttered while walking faster. Even if David and Ali are into each other now, they just met. You can't trust men so easily. Big brother's the only reliable one here. By the time Alicia and David got in the car, Luis had already slipped into the seat behind them. Brother, what are you doing here? Alicia asked, looking helpless. Keeping you company. My little brother's worried about you, so we both came, Luis said, his voice full of righteousness. Alicia's cheeks flushed slightly. It's broad daylight. You two don't need to protect me. But the moment she turned her head, she saw the sun already dipping below the horizon, and immediately shut her mouth. Luis cleared his throat. So, the apartment mom and dad bought you, it's almost finished being renovated, right? Alicia nodded. Yeah, it's basically done. I just remembered I have a report due tomorrow, and there's some material I'm not sure about. It's in one of my books at the dorm, so I came to get it. Inside my mind, I clapped wildly. Sister's amazing. A true role model, motivated, hardworking, and full of positive energy. Alicia's lips curved into a faint smile, and that soft expression made her look impossibly adorable. David, meanwhile, had finally come back to his senses and realized just how forward he'd been earlier. His handsome face grew redder by the second. Future brother-in-law's blushing. I squealed silently. He's blushing. I can't believe I get to watch this live. My few innocent baby noises made Alicia squirm uncomfortably, her blush deepening. Thankfully, the university wasn't far from our house. Soon, we arrived at the campus. Luis held me. David walked beside Alicia, and together we looked like a very strange little procession heading toward the dormitory building. As usual, men weren't allowed inside the girls' dorm, so Luis and David waited downstairs. Should sister go up alone, I could go with her. I'm just a tiny baby. I waved my little hands in protest. Alicia couldn't resist and picked me up again. She carefully carried me upstairs to her dorm room, which she shared with Sophia. When they walked in, Sophia's face lit up in surprise and delight. Ali, you really are too sweet, always bringing your little brother everywhere you go. You love babies so much. When are you going to have one of your own? She teased playfully. Normally, Alicia would have just laughed it off and joked along, but this time, her face stayed serious. I haven't even graduated yet. It's far too early to talk about having children, and I only like my brother, not the idea of having a baby myself. Sophia froze for a moment. Ever since she'd introduced Makoto to Alicia, she could feel Alicia's attitude toward her growing colder by the day, distant, guarded. Alicia rarely came back to the dorm now, and even when she did, she barely spoke to her. After a short pause, Sophia forced a bright, innocent smile. Ali, you haven't stayed in the dorm for several days now, Alicia answered lightly. My mom arranged a new place for me. I won't be living in the dorm anymore. What? Then I'll be all alone here, Sophia said, sounding genuinely surprised. Alicia nodded calmly, placing me gently on her bed before quickly finding the books she came for. She slid the ones she needed into her bag, took a few personal items, and then lifted me back into her arms. I'm heading out now, Sophia, she said evenly. I'll walk you out, Sophia offered immediately, following close behind. There's no need. My brother and the others came with me, Alicia replied. Still, she didn't stop Sophia. She knew she couldn't tear things apart yet, not before figuring out exactly who was backing Sophia and Makoto. On the surface, things still had to look peaceful. So, when Sophia insisted on walking downstairs with her, Alicia simply nodded. The moment they reached the ground floor, Sophia's eyes landed on David, standing beside Luis, holding me protectively in his arms. Her gaze brightened noticeably. Inside my tiny head, alarm bells blared. Oh no, she's looking at my future brother-in-law like that. Sister, Protect your men, David. Don't waver, my sister is the best. Alicia's brow twitched slightly, sensing Sophia's look but saying nothing. She strode straight to Luis. Brother, let's go. Right, we'll head out. Luis agreed at once. Sophia, pretending not to notice their intent to leave, smiled sweetly and asked, "Oh, and this handsome guy is?" David instinctively took a small step back. Luis answered before anyone else could. "He's my sister Ali's friend," he said, emphasizing the last word just enough. He had, of course, heard my mental screaming loud and clear, and he wasn't about to give Sophia even the smallest opening. Sophia's smile froze slightly. She could sense it too. Luis was warning her off. Just as the awkward tension was rising, another voice cut through the air. "Miss Wang." "Hello, we meet again," Makoto greeted, walking over with a polished smile. Alicia turned to him politely. "Hello." David's expression shifted subtly. His eyes flicked toward Makoto, assessing him quietly but sharply. Sophia beamed, trying to salvage the moment. "What a coincidence, Ali. You and Makoto went on that blind date before, and now you bump into each other again. Isn't that fate?" Alicia corrected her at once, her tone calm but firm. "I went on that blind date as a favor for you, Sophia. Mr. Ito and I are hardly acquaintances. Please don't joke about that again." Sophia stuck out her tongue playfully. Okay, I was just saying, you two do look like a perfect match." David cleared his throat softly and stepped forward. "Let me hold the little one," he said, reaching out his hands. I immediately stretched my arms toward him. Of course I wanted future brother-in-law to hold me. "Didn't we have somewhere else to be?" Luis interjected smoothly. Alicia nodded. "Right, we shouldn't keep anyone waiting. We'll go ahead." And with that, our little group quickly walked off together. Luis, Alicia, David, and me. Makoto, who had planned this accidental encounter, could only watch helplessly as Alicia left without a backward glance. His brow furrowed tightly. When he turned toward Sophia, her smile had vanished too, replaced by a faint, ugly scowl. After a while, once we were sure we had gone far enough, Sophia finally spoke. "Brother, I'm sorry. I don't know why this happened. Based on what I know about Alicia, she should actually like you. All right, let's not talk about this for now. I already have another plan to handle it. Just keep things normal at school, and if I need your help, I'll let you know." "Oh right, brother." Alicia decided to move out of the dorm. "Do you think she's found out something?" "Found out what? We haven't done anything. What could she possibly find out? Could it be she's upset about you setting her up on that blind date?" Sophia frowned and thought for a long moment. "I don't think that's it. From what I know of her, she wouldn't get angry over something so trivial." "That's strange. It's like their whole family is guarding against us," Makoto said coldly. "Things aren't going well with Maria either. Lately, Luis has been acting really distant toward her. Could it be he has another woman?" Sophia guessed, frowning again. "Doesn't seem like it. He always takes the kid with him when he goes out. Where would he even find the time to see another woman?" The siblings discussed it for quite a while but couldn't find the root of the problem. In the car, I sat in David's arms, sometimes grabbing his fingers, sometimes Alicia's, as if I were connecting the two of them together. Luis glanced in the rearview mirror, the corners of his lips struggling to suppress a smile. Who would have thought that his best friend and his beloved sister would actually fall for each other? The atmosphere in the car was strangely warm and cozy. "I haven't eaten yet," Luis suddenly said. "Me neither," David added. "Let's find somewhere to eat." Alicia nodded. "Okay, this little one." Luis looked at me and noticed that the milk bottle on my chest was already empty. I immediately smacked my lips to show that I was hungry and wanted to go home for milk. "Let's drop the little one off first, then head out." "All right, sounds good." And just like that, I was sent back into Pretty Mom's arms. Pretty Mom was overjoyed when she saw me, kissing me, sniffing me, cuddling me. I giggled nonstop and then said in my heart, "Mom, that guy David you just met, he's going to be the richest man in the future. He and sister fell in love at first sight. You're going to have a billionaire son-in-law." Mom laughed even brighter at that, while handsome Dad's expression turned rather dark. I guess every father feels gloomy when he thinks about his daughter getting married. "Oh right, honey," Mom said. "Jenny said she can come over tomorrow." "Good. I've already arranged her room," Dad replied. The Wang family was very wealthy, but they only had one housekeeper, because they didn't like having strangers in their home. Even the driver didn't live there. He only came when needed. Before I was born, both the housekeeper and the driver lived in an apartment near the villa. But after I came along, the housekeeper moved into the villa too. Since both Pretty Mom and I needed someone to take care of us, a baby's energy is limited. After all, once I was full, I quickly fell asleep. That nap lasted until 10 o'clock at night. When I woke up, I saw Alicia, Luis, and my parents all sitting in my room. The four of them looked so cheerful, as if they were celebrating something. "What's going on?" I asked silently in my mind. Even though I knew no one could hear me, I couldn't help but have an internal monologue. "Ali, you're amazing." I didn't expect Pretty Mom to be the first to praise her. My big sister lifted her chin proudly, a triumphant look on her face. Luis added admiringly, "Who would have thought you could install a bug in the dorm?" With that, as long as Sophia talks on the phone or discusses anything in the dorm, we'll be able to hear everything. I blinked my big eyes in confusion. When did that happen? When did sister plant the bug? Could it have been when she took me back? Alicia spoke up then. When I put my little brother on the bed, I took the chance to tidy up a bit and slipped the bug into the hidden layer beneath my mattress. No one would ever notice anything there. Once we figure out why Makoto is approaching us, and who's behind Maria, we can make our move, Pretty Mom said firmly. Right now, we already have enough evidence to send them all to jail. The only reason we haven't acted yet is that we still don't know who's pulling the strings behind them. Handsome Dad added. In my heart, I clapped enthusiastically for my handsome dad. Daddy's so cool. Dad tilted his head with a proud smile. Exactly. Logically speaking, there's no love without reason and no hate without cause. Why are they targeting us? It can't just be because they happen to be our classmates. So Sophia and Maria deliberately approached the two of us, Alicia analyzed. And how convenient. She continued. It's as if there's some hidden thread connecting all of this, a line we haven't yet found. Pretty Mom nodded thoughtfully. Our family has always valued integrity in business, even in competition. We've never driven anyone to ruin. There shouldn't be any reason for this kind of hostility. Do we know yet what Makoto's parents, Sophia's mother, or Maria's parents do for a living? Luis asked. Not yet. Dad replied. We've already sent people to investigate, but there's no confirmed information so far. My guess is it's not easy to find. If they were ordinary people, we could just look up their household registrations. And since we can't find them, Handsome Dad concluded, it means someone is deliberately hiding the truth. Yes, there's definitely someone behind them. I shouted in my heart. I know who that person is, though I don't know his name. He used to be friends with Dad, but after our family became successful, wealthy, and happy, his life didn't go well. Later, he raised 2 children, no, actually 3, Sophia, Makoto, and Maria. All of them are connected to him. He's had a huge influence on those 3. He just can't stand to see Handsome Dad living well, so he's been secretly manipulating them to scheme against our family. Handsome Dad frowned deeply, lost in thought, trying to recall which of his old friends couldn't bear to see him doing well. He had many friends when he was young, but over time, most had drifted apart. Even former classmates could count as friends. That made the range far too broad. For now, all they could do was cast a long line and wait for the fish to bite. Once Makoto or Maria met with that person again, they could catch him, or maybe they could identify him through the connections those 3 shared. Pretty Mom was thinking hard too. She had grown up with Handsome Dad since childhood. They were childhood sweethearts, and even she couldn't imagine who could harbor such strong jealousy. Luis and Alicia, of course, were too young. They had never met any of Dad's old friends. The 4 of them talked for a while longer, discussing what to do next. Before heading off to bed, I yawned and soon drifted back to sleep as well. The next morning, when Pretty Mom carried me downstairs, there was a beautiful middle-aged woman sitting in the living room. Jenny, you're here so early. Pretty Mom greeted her with a smile. Following Pretty Mom's gaze, I looked at the woman. She stood there, her expression gentle and soft like flowing water, yet for some reason, I felt deeply uncomfortable all over. Why? I searched my memories but couldn't find any trace of her. Jenny smiled and said, you asked me to help, so of course I had to come early. Otherwise, how could you handle everything by yourself, the little one, the older ones, and a whole house full of people? You really do spoil me, Pretty Mom said with a fond smile. This is my precious son, George, Jenny introduced. Hello, George, what an adorable chubby boy, Pretty Mom said, smiling warmly. Pretty Mom exchanged a few pleasantries with her, then went to the kitchen. Breakfast hadn't been prepared yet. I'll get breakfast ready, otherwise Mr. Wang will be late for work, and Luis and Ali have school and are busy, Jenny said as she got to work. Pretty Mom gratefully put me into the rolling baby crib and went to help. The 2 of them chatted and laughed while preparing breakfast. By the time Handsome Dad, Luis, and Alicia came downstairs, the table was already filled with food. The 3 of them greeted Jenny, and everyone ate breakfast together. After breakfast, those who had to go to work or school got busy with their day. Pretty Mom felt a little tired after eating. While talking with Jenny, she kept glancing at me. Jenny said, you must not have slept well last night. Go get some more rest. Leave the child to me. We'll just sit in the living room and soak up some sun. I'll call you when he needs to nurse. All right, Jenny, I won't be formal with you. I'll go upstairs and sleep for a while. I don't know why, but I'm especially sleepy this morning. My eyelids twitched. Something felt off. Pretty Mom went back to her room and quickly fell asleep. I stayed in the living room with Jenny. She rested both hands on the baby crib, her eyes fixed on my little face, and then slowly said, you're quite a cute little thing. For some reason I felt that her words carried a hidden meaning. not kindness. Whatever she intended didn't matter, I could understand. If she said more, I'd know everything. At first they wanted to hire someone else to be your housekeeper, but they thought of me in the end. As I thought, in their eyes I'm only fit to be a housekeeper. Jenny spoke slowly, and the light in her eyes grew colder the more she talked, as if she had been mistreated. I shouted inside my head, "What are you saying? If you didn't want to, just say you didn't want to. You came here willingly, so why act like someone forced you?" Paranoid delusions, I mentally scoffed. Jenny reached out and picked me up. I cried out, "Wah," as she gave my little bottom 2 hard pats without ceremony. I sobbed and glared at her. Jenny looked at me and said, "You damned little brat, who told you to cry? If you bother me again, I'll just squeeze you to death." I shivered, fear surging through me. "It's not time yet," Jenny muttered coldly. "In a few days, after I steal the documents from your house, I'll sell you to the mountains." I want that bitch to feel the pain of being separated from her own flesh and blood. Separated from her own flesh and blood. The words struck me like lightning. I finally remembered who Jenny was. She was the one who used to be friends with both mom and dad. The one who couldn't stand to see them happy. When Jenny remarried, her second husband was a gambling addict who abused her. It was mom who helped her escape. But at that time, Jenny had a child, a little boy. Her gambling husband refused to let her take him, saying he was the family's only heir. To escape quickly, Jenny left the child behind with mom's help. Later, the child went missing. It all connected now. My mind raced as I pieced everything together. Finally, I understood. That's why Jenny was the most dangerous one. She had already entered our home. All she needed was a couple of quiet days to steal confidential documents from Dad's study. But she didn't know that handsome Dad had already replaced those files with fake ones. Thinking of that, I let out a small sigh of relief, though my little bottom still burned painfully, and I couldn't stop the tears welling up in my eyes. At that moment, the door suddenly burst open. Handsome Dad strode in and snatched me from Jenny's arms. "Why did you hit the child?" he demanded coldly. Jenny froze. "I didn't. I was just patting him to sleep. Look at him. His eyes are red from crying. And there are cameras in the living room. Do you think I can't see what you did?" Handsome Dad's face darkened, his tone sharp with fury. Jenny panicked. "Mr. Wang, I must have used too much force. It's been a long time since I've cared for a baby, but I swear I didn't mean any harm. Please, you have to believe me." Without another word, handsome Dad held me tightly and hurried upstairs. Pretty mom was half asleep, stirring weakly as she tried to open her eyes, but she couldn't. She drifted back into unconsciousness almost instantly. Handsome Dad immediately realized something was wrong. He called for help, and Pretty Mom was rushed to the hospital. After a full examination, the results came back. Traces of a sleeping drug were found in her blood. Pretty Mom didn't wake up until the afternoon. When she opened her eyes, the white hospital ceiling filled her vision. She blinked in confusion. What happened?" "You were drugged," handsome Dad said grimly. "Luckily, it was only a sedative. Nothing too dangerous." "Who?" Pretty Mom asked, dazed and disbelieving. "Jenny." Pretty Mom's eyes widened in shock. "Jenny? You're saying Jenny drugged me? That's impossible. She and I grew up together. We've been friends since childhood." Since, her voice trailed off, disbelief twisting into trembling realization. Those 2 words instantly triggered something deep in Pretty Mom's memory. She remembered what I had said the night before, that it was one of Dad's friends who couldn't stand to see them happy. If that person was Jenny, it actually made sense. Jenny wasn't just her friend. She was also Dad's friend. Could it be that Makoto, Maria, and Sophia were all arranged by her? Does she really have that kind of power? Handsome Dad wrapped his arms around Pretty Mom. "It doesn't matter anymore," he said calmly. "I've already called the police. They're coming to arrest her." "Wait, won't that cause problems? Don't we need to find out who's behind her?" Pretty Mom asked anxiously. Handsome Dad looked into her eyes and said firmly, "No need. Whoever it is, we'll deal with it when they come. We can't keep defending passively forever. Besides," he said, his tone turning cold, "she dared to lay a hand on our son." "What?" Pretty Mom gasped, nearly falling off the bed. "She what? What happened to our son?" Handsome Dad steadied her gently. "It's all right. I had the doctor examine him. She only slapped his bottom twice. She didn't have time to do anything else. But on the surveillance recording, I heard her say that after she stole the documents, she planned to sell him off to the mountains." Pretty Mom's face flushed red with anger. Then, realizing this was a friend she had known for years, her rage turned to heartbreak, and tears welled up in her eyes. When Pretty Mom finally calmed down, Luis came in carrying me, with Alicia following behind. They had both rushed home the moment they heard something had happened. "Mom, are you all right?" Alicia asked worriedly, stepping forward. "I'm fine," Pretty Mom said softly. "Come here, sweetheart. Let me hold him." She reached out her arms, and I stretched mine toward her too. Pretty Mom gathered me tightly in her embrace. "I'm so sorry, my baby," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's all Mom's fault for trusting the wrong person and letting you get hurt." I rubbed my little head against her chest, trying to comfort her with my thoughts. It's okay, pretty mom. It's not your fault. Who could have imagined that someone you've known for so many years could be such a bitter and narrow-minded person? I know why she did it, because you helped her escape that gambler husband years ago. And she lost her child in the process. That's why she hates you. But you were only trying to help her. She was the one who chose to leave her child behind. How can she blame you for everything? It's good that you finally see her true colors. Mom, don't be sad anymore. Pretty mom's eyes grew redder as she listened to my soft babbling. She lowered her head and kissed my tiny forehead. Thank goodness I still have all of you, she murmured, holding me even tighter. That same night, pretty mom was discharged from the hospital. Jenny's already been taken into custody. I thought silently to myself, she tried to steal business secrets, drugged mom, and even abused a baby. With all those charges combined, she'll be locked up for years. The only ones still out there are Makoto and Maria. Handsome dad seemed to read my thoughts again and said calmly, Makoto and Maria have been dealt with too. They're in custody. I blinked in surprise. It really felt like handsome dad could hear everything in my head. Every worry I had, he'd already solved it. That meant our family was finally safe. Now there's only Sophia left, he continued. But she's harmless. We've been monitoring her. She's terrified. She won't dare try anything again. That's great. I cheered inwardly, clapping my little hands in excitement. Our family's danger alert is finally over. Just then, everyone in the room felt a brief, sharp ringing in their ears. They looked around at each other, and in that instant, they could no longer hear my thoughts. After tucking me into bed and watching me fall asleep, the four of them gathered once again for a family meeting. Can everyone else not hear little brother's voice anymore? Handsome dad asked. Pretty mom nodded. Yes, I think it's gone. Luis and Alicia both agreed. Handsome dad smiled faintly. Maybe that's a good thing. He's always warned us when danger was near. Now that we can't hear him, it probably means the danger is truly gone. That's a blessing for all of us. Pretty mom nodded, smiling softly. It's good for him too. The four of them exchanged warm, knowing smiles. From now on, they would all stay alert and protect their home with everything they had. Oh, by the way, Ollie, Luis teased with a grin. How are things going with David? David, he's supposed to be the future billionaire. You better make your move. What billionaire? Stop talking nonsense. That's what little brother said. And he's the one who picked your future brother-in-law. You can't let him down. Alicia's cheeks turned crimson. She lowered her head, refusing to say another word, while the rest of them burst into laughter. The atmosphere in the room was light, warm, and filled with the kind of happiness that comes after surviving a storm. The next morning, David Chan showed up at our door, and with him came his parents. Alicia froze when she saw the three of them. You really came. David smiled. I wasn't joking. Yesterday, when I asked if I could officially propose to you, you said yes. A proposal is something both families should know about. He continued seriously. And since you mean so much to me, I want my parents to treat this as seriously as I do. The Chan parents immediately expressed their delight. They said that as long as it was the girl their son truly loved, she would be warmly welcomed into their family. My parents were naturally overjoyed as well. I waved my little hands happily in my crib, cheering silently. Finally, the future billionaire is officially my brother-in-law. He belongs to our family now. No one could hear my inner voice anymore, but everyone could feel my joy. Then, in front of both families, David knelt down solemnly and proposed to Alicia. She smiled through tears and said yes. Their wedding date was set for 6 months later. By then, I would be 8 months old. Time flew by. During those months, our housekeeper had fully recovered and returned to work. Mom and Dad also hired 2 professional baby caretakers, both thoroughly vetted and completely trustworthy. I grew healthier and stronger each day, and by the time I was 8 months old, I could already call Daddy, Mommy, brother, and sister. After all, inside my tiny body lived the soul of an adult, so I learned everything faster than most babies. Soon, the day of Alicia and David's wedding arrived. I was the little flower boy, the one Luis carried down the aisle. Pretty mom dressed me in a tiny white suit and placed a small basket in my hands with the wedding rings hanging delicately inside. You know, Alicia said with a soft laugh, he's actually so adorable like this. When she saw me, her eyes softened. She opened her arms, picked me up, and planted a gentle kiss on my chubby cheek. It's all thanks to our family's little lucky star that I didn't end up with that scumbag, she said with a teary smile. That's why I can live such a peaceful life now. Pretty mom quickly stepped forward to hug her, wanting to comfort her, but before she could say anything, her own eyes filled with tears too. Mother and daughter held each other and cried quietly for a long while, until Luis and handsome dad came over and soothed them both. A daughter always cries when she's getting married, Pretty mom said, smiling through her tears. I just can't bear to let her go. Handsome dad frowned slightly, his voice gruff but tender. I can't bear it either. I told you. Ali's still young. She hasn't even finished her master's degree yet. What's the rush? Why not wait a few more years? Just as David walked into the room, he overheard his soon-to-be father-in-law's emotional sigh and quickly stepped forward with a sheepish grin. It's my fault. Sir, I'm the one who was too eager. Handsome Dad shot him a half-playful glare. Listen, if you ever dare bully our Ollie, her mom, her brother, and even her little brother won't let you off, got it? David laughed softly. Don't worry, Dad. I'll treat Ollie well, I promise. Soon, the ceremony began. Handsome Dad proudly, yet with visible reluctance, walked Alicia down the long red carpet. When he placed her hand gently into David's, I could see the bittersweet pain in his eyes. The wedding went perfectly, and as soon as it ended, David whisked Alicia away for their honeymoon abroad. Unable to wait a moment longer, back at home, only my parents, my big brother, and I remained. Luis was still single, a total bachelor. Perhaps because of what happened with Maria, he had lost all interest in women. Pretty Mom even began to worry that he might have been so emotionally scarred that he'd start liking men instead. Luis kept insisting that he'd definitely bring home a daughter-in-law one day, then escape the conversation as fast as he could. And so, our family continued living happily and peacefully. I grew up surrounded by warmth and laughter. Alicia later gave birth to her first child, my adorable little nephew. Luis eventually found someone he truly liked as well. When he brought her home to meet Pretty Mom, she smiled so brightly that her eyes turned into gentle crescents. Time flowed gently onward. I entered middle school, then high school, then university. My life was full of comfort, love, and joy, warm and steady, just the way I'd always wished. When I graduated from college, I met the heroine of my own life, the one meant for me. It was around then that Mom and Dad finally told me the truth, that when I was a baby, they could hear my thoughts. They said it was my inner voice that had helped them avoid every danger and misfortune. I felt nothing but gratitude. Even knowing they had once heard my heart, I didn't mind at all, because they were my family. I loved them deeply, and to have been able to help protect them, to keep them safe from harm, was the greatest happiness of my life. As for those who once tried to hurt us, years later, when Maria and Makoto were released from prison, they returned quietly to their hometown and never set foot in our city again. Jenny eventually left too. Before she departed, she came to see Pretty Mom and apologized with sincerity. She told her that during her years in prison, she had done a lot of thinking and finally realized that Pretty Mom had truly tried to help her back then. But after being consumed by bitterness for so many years, she couldn't bear to stay any longer once she'd seen the truth. Later, we learned that Makoto was actually Jenny's son. The connections were complicated, but none of that mattered anymore. Those people and their grudges belonged to the past. Our family moved forward, cherishing peace and love, determined to live our best and happiest lives together.